Howdy and welcome everyone to the Accessibility in Aggieland webinar series in 2023. We're excited to have our first session of the spring semester with Mrs. Aimee Ortiz-Day, and she'll be talking more about person-centered thinking. Accessibility in Aggieland is a collaboration between the Center on Disability and Development and the TAMU Disability Resources. And so Dr. Christy Orr, who is the director of TAMU Disability Resources, and I will be here to help facilitate and to answer, to refer your questions to our speakers. If you guys would hang on at the very end, we will have a evaluation link, and we would love to know your thoughts of what you enjoyed and what we could do better. So that being said, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Ms. Aimee Ortiz-Day, and she will be sharing more about herself and her presentation today. Thank you, Aimee.
Thank you, Megan. I am really excited to be here today to get to introduce you to person-centered thinking, because it's not something that a lot of people know about, but I know some of you have heard of person-centered thinking or person-centered planning, and we'll kind of discuss a little bit about the difference between the two. So I am a certified trainer through the learning community for person-centered practices to teach the two-day curriculum of person-centered thinking. And I am representing the CDD today as I'm at the Institute for Person-Centered Practices. And this is a great collaboration that has been going on for probably at least 10 years, not a little bit longer, between us and UT Center for Disability Studies. So we collaborate, we work together. They are my mentors, and I'm going through the process of becoming a mentor myself. Hopefully by the end of this month, I will have the mentor status, which means that not only can I provide the trainings, but I can create trainers. So that way we are helping to oh gosh, one thing you'll learn about me is that my brain will just completely stop on me, and then I have to reach for the word, build capacity. That's the word that I'm trying to think. Right, so it's not just me going out and doing trainings, but I can work with organizations and train their employees to provide the training to the people in their communities and within their organizations. So with that, we will get started. So it is going to be interactive. I'm not just going to be sitting here, talking to you, lecturing with you. I will be using Mentimeter to get some feedback from you. I want you to use the chat to, shout out some answers, because today I want you to kind of get a little bit of an insight into how to be what I tell my students, how to be a PCT detective. So this is a 2-day training. I'm giving you an hour and a half. So you're really just kind of getting the basics of it, the foundation. And if you're interested in more, then I actually have a full training coming up next week that you can join me on. But it's, to me, I love person-centered thinking. It's something that is constantly happening in my mind, whether or not I'm consciously doing it. And it helps me to relate better to people, because that is what person-centered thinking is. It's a process to be able to establish relationships and listen to people and dig deeper. So as you know, I work for the Center on Disability and Development. I am also a member of the Institute for Person-Centered Practices, but my most important job is that of being a mom to two handsome young men. One is my musician. He's the one all in black. He is my sarcastic sense of humor, just throws the most random tweets at me, or not tweets, but text messages, always makes me laugh. And then my youngest, the one on the left with my left, is it your left too? I don't know. With the full beard or the mustache, that looks like he's in his 20s. He's actually 17. And he had hair all the way down to his mid back. They both have really long hair, and his hair is very important to him. And you will learn that term And having control over his hair and his beard is very important to him. But I think what is most important to him about his hair is that he can fool people into thinking he's older. So when we're in restaurants, people assume that he's an old, and then they'll offer him beer or wine, and he gets this little sneaky grin, and he's like, I would like a beer, please. And I say, well, actually, he's 16 or he's 17. But both of my sons have disabilities. My youngest, he is autistic. We use identity first language in our home. And that means that he identifies as being a person who is autistic versus a person who has autism. It's an important part of who he is, and he's proud that he's autistic. And so what I'm doing now, what you're going to learn, I have been using with him since he was in 5th grade, and he understands these terms, and it's helped him to become a really strong self-advocate at school. He's going to be a senior now. So when he's in his IEP meetings, like, he is a true member, equal member of that IEP meeting. So he knows what goals he wants to accomplish, and he understands how to ask for accommodations that are important to him. So not just, okay, yes, here's Ty, he has autism, because that's usually how they say it at school. And then these are the accommodations that kids typically get when they're autistic. But he's learned to say, you know what, no, I don't need that, but what I really need is this. And people listen to him. And so it's helped us to really empower him and teach his IEP team what a true equal member a student can be, and how to listen to a student and not just assume that just because they are the experts, they know what's best. And now that we're in transition and he's going to be a senior, we know that school, particularly when we're talking about a student with a disability, that our goal is not just to get the student to graduate and either go to post-secondary education or have a job. It's to help that person prepare them for a good life that they want, something that brings them joy and happiness and purpose, and not just, yes, he's going to get out and get a job at McDonald's. Not that there's anything wrong with that if that's what the person's goal is, but truly, how do we have conversations with Ty to discover what he wants in his future? And then how do we work together as a team to make sure that we're all trying to reach that same goal? So I will kind of talk about it in terms of school, but person-centered thinking, you can use this for anybody. It is not disability specific. It is not school specific. You can use this with your spouse. You can use this with your parents, with your kids, even with your pets. I mean, it is, it's not even just for humans. You can do it for your pets too. So we're going to get started with our first mentee. If you would mind either scanning that or going to mentee.com and entering that code. And I'm going to give you just a minute to get the code and all that, and then I'm going to share the screen with the Mentimeter, if I can do this without messing things up here. Okay, is that the one? Or no, I want this one. Okay, here we go. All right, so if you are on there, please tell me, where do you work and what is your role? So I can kind of get an idea of who all is here. We have 2 students, awesome. Texas A&M, provide access for students with disabilities, perfect. Hazardous materials, that is cool. I'm glad you're here. Ooh, vet med. I actually worked in veterinary medicine for 15 years in small animal ICU. So, yay, good to have a little bit of my past here. Megan is here, University Libraries, wonderful. English interpreter, ASL students, nursing, wonderful. So glad you're here. This definitely applies in the healthcare world. Accessibility, perfect. More students. Students, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for being here today. Gear up, definitely gonna be good for gear up. All right, research specialist, gear up. Yay, so many of you from Gear Up, that's awesome. Thank you, I'm glad you're here. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. We'll be using Mentimeter 2 more times after this. So let me go back to, okay, are we all back on the PowerPoint? Perfect. All right, so my goals for today are to help you learn the foundation of person-centered thinking. And then I'm going to show you how, after we have our discovery process and we find out all this information, what do you do with it? How do you share it with other people? So I will show you some examples of how we share this information with others. Because going through the time to get all this wonderful information, and then it just stays with you, and you're the only person that knows everything about that person. When you're gone, then all that knowledge is lost. So think about, I'm sure several of you have been educators. You take all the time throughout the year and you learn so much about your students. And then, maybe you have information that goes into their IEP about accommodations, about work and things like that. But all the little things get lost. You become an expert on how to help the student calm down when they're frustrated. You know how to tell when they're happy, even if they don't use words to communicate. And then how often does that information get shared with a new paraprofessional or the next teacher, right? All that important information is just gone. So we have some documents that help us to keep sharing that information and keep adding to it. So I do need to mention that this curriculum and these slides are copyrighted by the Learning Community for Person-Centered Practices. And my certification is done through them. And they are an international community of volunteers. We all volunteer to work together to update the curriculum, make sure that we all are focused on the same thing. So we're all envisioning a world where people have positive control over the lives they've chosen for themselves. And our efforts focus on people who have lost or may lose positive control because of society's response to the presence of a disability. We foster a global learning community that shares knowledge, and I can't see the last word, for that purpose. There we go. So that is what the learning community does. And we have trainers in Canada. We have trainers in all over the United States. We recently had some trainers certified in South Korea, which is really, really cool, and Australia. So this is not an American thing. It's all over. It's in Britain. So people all over the world are using person-centered practices to help people have positive control, right? Because definitely have negative control over their lives. And those are usually called behaviors, right? So we're establishing, we have, people and students who have control over their school life, but it's going to be negative control. It's going to be, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get out of this class because I don't want to be here. They still have control, but it's negative control. And what we want is for them to have positive control over their life at home, at school, to be able to say, this is what I need. Or if they can't verbalize that, for us to be able to share that with others. This is what they need to have a great day at school. So that is the beginning. So person-centered thinking, as I mentioned, it is an intentional process to develop relationships. And it guides respectful listening, which results in people who have positive controls over their life. They're recognized and valued for their contributions, either their current contributions or potential contributions. So maybe right now, they joined the tennis team at school and they don't really know anything about tennis, but they have the potential to become an important part of that tennis team, and they can become a potential contributor to that tennis team. to their communities, however their community defined. We all have different definitions of community, different pockets of community. So we're not talking about, this giant Bryan College Station community for my son. He's got his tennis community, he's got his Pokemon Go community. I have my community of families that have children with disabilities, but then I also have a community of here at work of people who love to go and eat out and try new restaurants, right? So community can be small, can be big. And the last thing is that people are supported in a web of relationships that are not just paid. So it's true natural relationships, and then if needed, paid relationships. But when we focus on just those paid relationships, then when those people are gone, then they're left all alone. There's no one there to help them. There's no one to call if they're sick and they need a ride to go to the doctor or something like that. Right? So once mom and dad are no longer around, then they're either stuck on their own with no support, or the only people that are in their lives are people who are paid to be there. And no one's really there because they want to be there, because they love and care for them. And so the skills that we use are skills that are always helping us to learn. So the skills that I'm going to quickly review, because it is, just an hour and a half, are skills that we use to support people rather than fixing people. And that's a huge, huge part of the training, because I know myself, before I started learning about person-centered thinking as a mom, I just wanted to fix everything. I wanted my day to go as smoothly as possible. I didn't want any meltdowns to happen. So mom just did, mom got everybody dressed. Mom made the schedule to make sure that everybody had what they needed to get to school on time. None of my kids really had any control over their own morning routine. It was me going, brush your teeth, do this, do this, do this. Always hounding. And so I really had my fixing hat on and not really my supporting hat on. And that's a shift in thinking for lots of people, especially when we are talking about people with disabilities, right? So supporting rather than fixing. We are building this culture of learning, right? I'm not the expert of everybody. I'm not the expert of my kids. They are the expert on themselves. I have knowledge of my kids. My kids' teachers also have knowledge about them that I don't know, because I'm not a teacher. I'm not there 24 hours with their kid, with my kid. Right. So we're learning from each other. We're working in partnership, and then we're holding each other accountable. So if I tell my son, I promise that XYZ is going to happen, if I say those words, boy, I better make sure that I actually make that happen. And that's important for other people to know when it comes to my son and as part of his one-page profile. Don't ever use the word I promise unless you're actually gonna do it, because that means something really big to him. As I said, actually it says here works for humans, but really it works for animals too. My son has created a one-page description for our cat. You can use these skills in organizations. When we're doing our annual evaluations, we can use a lot of these tools to get more information instead of, we're really having a hard time with this project, and then everybody sits down and goes, okay, we're going to try this next. Well, no, let's take the time to really think about what we've done up until this time, right? What are all the things that we've tried, so that we can take the next step instead of just jumping without thinking about what we've done. And it affirms our belief that everyone can learn. Remember, if you have any questions, please just put them in the chat, and I'm happy to answer them as we go along. So person-centered thinking is actually a training that is mandatory for certain people who work for organizations that receive funding from Medicaid. So home-based community services. This just means that if, for example, if my son was on a waiver, was receiving waiver funds from Medicaid, that his service plan was created in a person-centered way versus, okay, this is what Aimee's health home care does for everyone who gets services from us. You know, we're all going to go to Walmart on Wednesdays. Everybody is going to be, you know, making soap, even if making soap is something that like the smell really bothers you. Nope, you know, that's the enrichment activity that everybody's going to do. So it means that they're actually, by law, have to sit down, the individual and the family, and figure out what goals do they want. Do they want to live with their parents? Do they want to have their own apartment? Do they want to live with a roommate? So it is actually a person-centered planning process. Yes, Dr. Lynch, that would be it. I wish I would have put it in here. I'll send it to you though. It's really cute. He's learned so much. My son does presentations with me, and he knows this stuff really good. So this is our mantra, right? That our job is to help people get better lives and not just to make better paper. Because if I take the time to have a conversation with someone, have multiple conversations with people and really listen to them and say, you know, you're telling me that, you know, you're really frustrated with school because you hate going in the hallway when there's hundreds of students there, it's overwhelming, and then that causes you to be upset in the next class. And then I say, okay, you know, I'm listening to you. I'm going to tell your teachers that you get to leave 2 minutes early in order to be able to do this. You know, to have time. And then you know, I say, oh, well, that, you know, that didn't work out. They didn't agree. Right, but it says it on the IEP, right? It's on the IEP, but it's not done. So I created better paper, but I didn't really help that student have a better life at school, right? So it's not about making the paper look good, it's about helping that person really, really have a better life. So these are the tools that we use when we are doing our discovery. So we have them in 3 different sections. If you see here on the right-hand side, there are 6 tools that we use, and we call them our discovery listening skills. And that is exactly what they do. When we use these tools, these skills, we're discovering information about people. We're having conversations with them to get to know them a little bit better and find out what. So for example, the relationship map, we're going to have conversations about who is in their life and who are they really close to emotionally, and who also, you know, who do they not get along with. So if we're talking about people who support them at school, it's really important to know which teachers they get along with, but it's also equally important to figure out which teachers they don't get along with, so that you can figure out, okay, well, what is it about Mr. So-and-so that in your relationship map, you put them way out here versus close to your heart, meaning that they're close to them. And that leads to information about, it could, you know, it could be something about the way that they talk. It could be that they use sarcasm and they don't understand sarcasm, and so they see that person as being a bully. You know, there's lots of different reasons why someone might be placed on the outside. And then we look at our routines and rituals and discover little bits of information about how that person wants to be supported. There's another tool that we use called Good Day and Bad Day. And it is just that. You talk about, what does a good day look like for you at work or at home or at school? What does a bad day look like for you at work or home or at school? And get more details, right? Not just surface information, not just it's a bad day when I have a test. Okay, well, what about, you know, why is it a bad day when you have a test? Is it because you get anxious and you don't sleep well the night before? Right, that's me. I sit up and I start thinking about it. Oh my gosh, and I'll have dreams about the test. So not just taking it verbatim, but going with it and digging deeper. We have another skill that we use called the 2-minute drill. So if you had 2 minutes to tell your coworker how you want to be supported in the office, what would you say to them? What are the most important things that you need people to know, that you would say in 2 minutes or less? We have a 2-minute drill that we share with our teachers in case anybody, like a teacher, needs to go to a doctor's appointment or something like that, and they just need to have somebody pop in and that person doesn't know Ty. So the 2-minute drill right now is not as important as it was when he was younger, because he did have some school related trauma in his past, and his first name became a trigger for him. And so it was really, really important that anybody who is in the classroom understand that if you call him by his first name, you don't call him Ty, then it would automatically trigger kind of this fight or flight system for him. And he would get really, really, really angry. So just a tiny little thing, but think of how many times somebody comes in and they're doing the roll call and they're going off of the name on there. And if they were just to say his first name, then already like his day would just start off on a bad foot just from that small little thing. We have a skill that we do called reputation. And this is usually when I teach this class for our PATH students, which is our post-secondary education program here at A&M. It's a 2-year post-secondary education program for people with disabilities or without disabilities. This is their favorite skill to do because you get to find out what people like about you. And we go around and we write nice things about each other. And then we introduce ourselves with our nice things. So it helps students to learn about their strengths. And oftentimes this is something that when we do this with adults, it's really hard. When I say write 3 nice things about yourself, I'm like, oh, nice things. Like, what am I, like, that just feels wrong to write something nice about myself. And then when I say write 2 things that are a mild negative, people's like, only 2? Because it's a lot easier to write down the things that you think are wrong with you than the things you think are good about yourself. So this particular skill helps us to look at not only to find out what others like and admire about that person, but also what are the negative reputations that people have that follow them. So particularly when we're talking about people with disabilities, right? If you, like if I have a bad day at work, I have a bad day at work, and that's it, right? If a student with a disability has a bad day at work, then that one bad day might be part of their reputation that keeps getting shared over and over. Oh, you have so-and-so in your classroom. He did XYZ 3 years ago, and without even thinking of why XYZ happened, right? That's just something that always stays with that student. It might stay on their records forever. Whereas if it was another student that didn't have a disability, right, that information might not keep getting shared over and over. So we also look at those, what could be possibly seen as a negative reputation. And we figure out, we ask ourselves some questions to find out if it's actually something positive when you look at it in another way. So for example, you oftentimes hear people with Down syndrome being referred to as stubborn. And when we look at when a particular person with Down syndrome might be considered stubborn, it's when they're trying to be an advocate for themselves. They're trying to say, no, I don't want to do that, or I want to do this. So stubborn actually, can be turned into advocates for themselves. My son has not anymore, had a negative reputation of being called nosy, right? He was nosy. And so when we started to investigate, when is he being nosy? Give me an example of this. We found out it was when teachers were raising their voices at other students. Right. So thinking back to 5th grade, when he had some things happen at school where adults were constantly raising their voices at him. That triggered this need to protect others and to make sure that others are safe, because he's asking questions about, why is this person in trouble? Why are you yelling at them? And then it actually became empathetic. It became protective. So not nosy. It's, he wants to make sure this person is okay. He's empathizing with them. And then the last skill that we have is the communication chart. And I will show you an example of a communication chart. And it's one of my favorite skills because it shows people how we communicate with words and without words. And then it also it gives you the example of what is happening in order to make me do this. And this is what it means. This is the emotion that I'm feeling. And then the last part is how that person wants to be supported when that particular instance is happening. So it leads to action, and it leads to rather than fixing people. The next group of skills we have are what we call the everyday learning skills. So we've gotten information, we know some good information about people, and then we use this to kind of reevaluate and see if the things that we've put in plan are working. So we'll ask ourselves what's working and not working. I'm constantly having to ask my son what's working and not working at school right now, because all I hear is the not working. Oh, I'm in there for 8 hours a day. It's too long. Well, tell me some of the things that are working, so he can look at the positives. It's not just focus on the negatives. But sometimes maybe something is not working, and that's important for people to be able to share. Nothing's working at school right now. That's huge. But it's also done in collaboration. So we could take a working, not working, and get different people's perspectives. So what is working and not working at school from the teacher's point of view, from my point of view, and from Ty's point of view? And that leads you to a lot of great information that you can use to go into an IEP meeting and make some new goals, right? Come up with different ways to change things so that the stuff that's not working is working. Another tool that we use is called the 4+1. And that one is also another evaluation tool. So I kind of already mentioned it, but you have something that you're struggling with, perhaps a program that is not going quite as well as you expected, then you can sit down and really focus on one specific thing. So, our families are not engaging with our online tool. Right, you've created this great online training, and you go and you see only 10 people have done it. Right, so you can sit down as a team and say, okay, what have we tried? We've tried emailing it out to people. We've tried, going on TV. Okay, what have we learned? We learned that when we go on TV, we'll get a little bit more people, but when we're emailing people, we're not getting that big of a response. What are you pleased about? Okay, we're pleased about that when we go on the TV, that we're getting a bigger response, that, we get a larger audience if we go on TV and talk about it. What are we concerned about? We're concerned about our grant said we were going to reach 600 people and we've only reached 10 people. So after you take the time to look at all of that, then you can decide, okay, well, what are we going to try next? So it's everybody working together, and somebody might have a great idea. Oh, we should try radio. We should try, La Voz, going to using Hispanic newspapers to reach more people. So it's a great way to get everybody's viewpoints and opinions. And then the last learning skill that we have is learning logs, and that is just a way to document information. So if for the one person on here that works at the vet school, right, the nurse's notes that I had to write on the back, it was, you either had people that would fill up pages and pages during their shift, and you look at it, you go, oh my gosh, I don't have time to read all of that about this particular dog. And then you would have ones where it was just like, oh, yeah, the dog's still alive. Good. So it's a way to help you put information, meaningful information. So what do they like about this particular thing? So if you're assessing students, what worked well when you tried this on this day? What do you have to do differently next time? Okay, it worked well that after I introduced myself and I had a little conversation with the student, he opened up to me. But what I need to do next time is I need to give him a heads up that I'm coming, because it really bothered him that I just showed up in the middle of the day and he didn't know, and he's getting to miss his favorite class. Right, that's an example. And the last one is our management skills, and that's how we manage the people that work with this individual. So the donut is a great skill that I'm using all the time, because it helps us to see our roles and responsibilities. I'm sorry, my phone's going to ring and I don't know how to, oh, look at that. Okay, volume apparently doesn't make it go down. So the donut helps us see our roles and responsibilities, and it gives us clarity. That tells us in this, let's use the example of the grant. In this grant, this is your paid responsibility as a program coordinator of this grant. This is what you have to do in order to keep your job. And then we have this area where you can use judgment and creativity. So you can try different things, and it's okay. You're not going to get in trouble if you try to implement something new and it didn't work out. You have the ability to try new things. And then, to me, what is the most important part is what is not your responsibility, right? When you find yourself going, why am I doing this? Like, this is not my job. This is somebody else's job. Then you have that donut and you're like, okay. So whenever I have website issues, it's not my job to deal with that. That's somebody else's job. So I know website issue, okay, that's going to this person, right? I don't have to try to figure out how to deal with the website or whatever. That's going to go straight to this other person. And then the matching skill is another skill that is used to help develop good matching between the person who is being supported and the person who is providing support. So if we're talking about finding a good paraprofessional to work with a student, let's say, then we know the skills that person has to, the support that person has to provide. We know the skills that they need to have in order to provide that support. Those are 2 columns on there. And then the stuff that often gets lost is, what are the personality characteristics of someone that would work well with that student? And then what are the nice things to have? So if we found a paraprofessional that loved Pokemon and could talk to my son about Pokemon, that would be a really great match. But if that person was someone who likes gentle teasing, right, that's something that's not going to work well with my son, because he doesn't understand gentle teasing. So gentle teasing is bullying, and he's constantly going to feel bullied when the person is, that's just the way that they interact with others. And that's something that my dad had to learn. That's how he's a gentle teaser all the time. And so he had to learn that doesn't work with my son. You can't do any gentle teasing. So that's the matching skill. All right. So those are all the skills that we use to discover information to really get to the core of person-centered thinking. And that is finding out what's important to someone and what's important for someone, and getting a good balance between the two. So that is the core concept. So when we're talking about important to, the things that we're looking for, the things that we want to hear, the clues that we're looking for, are the things that help people feel satisfied, content, comforted, fulfilled, and happy. So it's the things that make life worth living, right? The stuff that we have, our rituals and our routines, having status and control. That one can sometimes be a little bit confusing if people are like, what does that mean, status and control? As I said, having control over his hair and his beard is really important to my son. And when he and I spoke at the Family to Family conference, there was a mom sitting in the audience who has an adult son with who's autistic, and he needs self-care support. So she shaves her son. And after Ty finished and she came up to him and she was talking to him and she said, "You know what? I have never stopped to think if my son would like to grow a beard. I have always just shaved him because, that's kind of what I preferred, but she never stopped to think if he would like to have a beard." And she asked him, "What do you think? Do you think I should let his beard grow and see if he likes it?" And of course, having a beard was really important to him. So he was like, "Yes, yes, do it." So having control and status. So for some people, status is important. It could be, like having a really nice purse with a name brand on it is important to some people. It could be having the latest phone, whatever is out now, iPhone 15 or 20 or whatever number they're up to, right? So having that status, right? Having the Aggie ring, that's a big deal to a lot of us. That is a huge status sign, right? Having that Aggie ring, you never go anywhere without somebody seeing it and coming up to you and talking. It starts relationships, it opens doors. So that's a status symbol. Our culture and our identity, knowing things like gender pronouns, right? Identity is important. Rhythm and pace of life, getting to live life at our own rhythm that we want. So when I was telling the kids to get ready in the morning, I was setting their rhythm and their pace of life in the morning. And it took me time to realize that I have one son who wakes up early and gives himself plenty of time to get ready in a slow pace. And then I have one kid that prefers to get up 15 minutes before he had to go to school, sometimes brush his teeth, sometimes not, and then just throw on whatever clothes he could find and leave, right? He didn't really care about all the other stuff. And so once I was able to let go of the control of what he looked like, right? Because it was important to me for him to not have rumpled clothes or things like that. Then I, gave it up to them, and it really kind of improved our morning routine because there was a lot of fighting of me trying to control everybody. Stuff that gives us purpose and meaning, right? That's one thing that when we're talking about supporting people with disabilities, we don't often try to discover that information, right? Because that could be a little bit harder to figure out what gives someone purpose and meaning, but it's important to take the time to figure that out, even when we're talking about helping students prepare for life after high school, right? It's not just about getting a job. I don't have this job just for money, right? I have this job because I like helping people. The people that we want to be with, our relationships, and the things that we do and places to go, right? Not just everybody goes to Walmart on Wednesdays. What if you like Target and you want to go to Target, right? So getting to go bowling, getting to go swimming when you want. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, so this is where you get to use the chat function to look at my office. So now knowing that things that are important to you are things that bring us happiness, comfort, joy, fulfillment, contentment, take a quick look at my office. This is what it typically looks like. And make some guesses in the chat. What are some things that you see that you might guess? Art. Okay. What are some things in there that you think bring me happiness and joy? Family, coffee, children's art. Good. Family and love. Music. Ooh. How'd you come up with that one? A tidy desk. That's funny. Anna, how did you come up with music? Because music is very important to me. Family art reading. Okay. We're going to go on to the next one. All right. So looking at that one, what would you say is important to me based on this? Organization. Yeah, that was for the other one. And probably some of the community. Good. Some of the other things you said, family, right? Family. Good. Advocating. Yes, Luisa. Right. Awesome. Okay. How about this one? Supporting. Great one. How about this one? I'm a pack rat. Collector. Yes, I love collecting things. Travel. Yes. Puerto Rico. Yes. I am Puerto Rican. So part of my identity. Very important to me. Yes. Things for people to play with while listening. Awesome. Good. So those are some good answers. So those are your little so how about we just skip the Menti and you just use the chat. Just type in one thing, colorful items. Type in one thing that is important to you. What's something that brings you happiness, joy, contentment, and fulfillment? Kids. Your heated blanket. Love it. Family and friends. Your pet. Grandson. Oh, I've seen pictures of that beautiful grandson. Oh, my Frenchie friends. Good. Good, right. Okay. So some of these things, right, if you were trying to have a conversation with me and you just walked in and you would notice my knickknacks, right, you could start having conversations about, oh, tell me, what is this? Why do you have a little cow on your desk? And I would get to tell you that I lived in Switzerland and this is a little cow from Switzerland, and everything has a memory attached to it. That is a point of my collections. It's either memory related or it's color and sensory related. So yeah, so you could have a conversation with me about Puerto Rico. Why do you have so many things about Puerto Rico? Well, if you can't tell, because I'm blonde and I have blue eyes, I am full-blooded Puerto Rican. I learned English when I was 8. The little frog, even though it's not a coquille, it reminds me of Puerto Rico, which is our little national animal that's really important to us. Okay, so then the next part is when we're talking about important for. And that is what we're typically good at. We are typically good at determining what people need to be healthy and safe. And we're talking about the things that they need to prevent an illness, treatment of illness, taking medications, going to the doctor, eating healthy, exercising, what people need to be safe emotionally, but also physically and emotionally, being free from fear. So using the name Thai is important for Thai because it would bring a fear response. So it was more of a safety thing. So health, safety, mental wellness are important for. And then there's a second part to important for. Oh, yeah. First, I'm going to give you an example of mine. Okay, so here's my office again. Have a look at it. Tell me, what are some things you think that are there because of my health and safety? So anything that is not important to, right? Because when we talk about important for, we use the words health and safety. But if it's not something that I do because it brings me happiness and joy and contentment, if it's something that I need to not be stressed out, or to have a better day emotionally, those are the things that'll be important for. Water, for breathe, tissues, ergonomic chair. Okay, good. I'm gonna do so. So this is my little, I forget what it's called. It's a little timekeeper. So I have a lot of programs And when I have my meetings with my annual meetings where we're talking about my different programs, people would say, oh, well, you're only down to spend 20% of your time on this project. And it was really hard for me to wrap my brain around, well, it's not really 20% of my time. I mean, to you on paper, it looks like that, but it really isn't. So I got this so that I can flip it whenever I'm working on a different project and I have like hard data and I can say, look, this month I spent 40% of my time on this program, and I just like having like that hard data that I can show. It helps me feel more productive. I can look and see, okay, I really had a good day today. I really worked hard. And then I have my fidgets. So I love puzzles. That was also something that you saw in my little collection. I have my fidget spinners. I'm a huge fidgeter. I love to touch things. When kids come to the office, I love to have something that kids can play with because our office is boring. So that's another reason. So it's important for me, but it's also important to me because I have extra of the little gummy guys in case kids are here, they're not bored and I can make them happy. And then my water and my coffee are definitely important for me. But the other stuff y'all said was true, right? It is important for me to have a good chair. You saw that I have 2 boxes of Kleenex. One is mine and one of for people who are in my office. So Kleenex is important to me. Important for me, excuse me. Febreze, yeah, we have a microwave right outside the door. So if anybody cooks something that offends me, then I can spray the Febreze and it helps me have a better day. So the next part of important for is what others see as necessary to help the person be valued and be a contributing member of their community. And that really kind of ties into the mental health, right? That's why it's under important for. And so when we're looking for those things, using a student as an example, so let's say that, so I have this picture, but this is a story about coffee, but I'm gonna share Ty's story about Pokemon Go. The Pokemon Go is a game you play on your phone. And it's a game that you do, when it first came out in 2016, it was really like a community game. There were so many people in Bryan College Station playing it, and you would see hundreds of people at the park, and we really made a lot of friends. And so the first time we went to go play Pokemon Go, this was 2016, so it was a while back and Ty was younger. And we went to the park, and the first person that he saw, he ran up to them and he grabbed their phone. And Ty, he didn't ever really look like a little kid once he reached like fifth, sixth grade. He really kind of looked older. And so if it was a person that was playing Pokemon Go, they tend to be a little bit nicer and they were like, oh yes, we're playing, and they would talk to him. But the poor girl that was just like walking at the park and was just happening to look at her phone, like she didn't like that. That really freaked her out that this big kid came and grabbed his phone. So I realized I had to teach him some special social rules about how do we play Pokemon Go. And so I had to teach him, the first thing you're going to ask when you see a person with their phone at the park is, are you playing Pokemon Go? And if they say yes, then you can continue with the conversation. And if you say no, then, you're not going to have a conversation about Pokemon Go. So he's like, okay. So then we went to the park again, and he was like, are you playing Pokemon Go? And when the person said yes, he would say, okay, and then they would start talking. And then if the first person that said no, he just like walked away from them. And I was like, okay, so now that we're going to say no, then maybe we say something else like, oh, okay, I just wanted to know, like, we're not just going to abruptly walk away. And he was like, okay. So as the game continued, I had to constantly keep teaching him new social rules so that when we went to play with all these people, because it was hundreds of people, it was people that valued him. And it wasn't people that were saying, hurry up, that kid's coming. Let's get out of here. Because you would do things together as a group. And so now, it's been so many years later, he knows all these people, he knows them by name. I don't really even have to, I don't go with him like I used to, because he's like, okay, mom, drop me off. I'm going to be meeting so-and-so, and we're going to walk the park and play. So he really, and he traded. And so he really ended up being a contributing member of that Pokemon Go community. And they actually even created his own Discord group. And so he invited people into his Discord community. So it was really a neat thing. So that's the example for what was necessary for him to be seen as valued and contributing member. But it's little things. If we're talking about, let's say, an 18+ program, and the students are going to Walmart, and all the staff are wearing shirts that say 18+ program, right? Then right away, they're not going to be seen as other teenagers at Walmart. People are going to be like, oh, these teenagers are part of some special thing because they're walking around with people that have lanyards and IDs. And so it's little things like that as well, making sure that we're not doing things to make people see as other. So give me an example of something that is important for you. And you can do it in the chat too, because I talked a lot. So what are some examples of things that you need to be healthy, safe, emotionally, physically, taking medicine every morning, exercising? Good. Downtime. What do you like to do for your downtime, Kim? Prayer. That's awesome, Monica. Playing with your dogs. Okay, good. Right. So when we're determining this information for people, right, we don't want to just leave it as downtime, because we would know what downtime meant to Kim. So we would continue to have a conversation. When do you like to have your downtime? Do you like to have your downtime in the morning when you wake up? Do you like to have it after work? When you say praying, is that something that you do in the morning when you're drinking your coffee? Is it something that you do before you go to bed? So we're taking the time to really dig deep. And that's one of the skills that we practice in the full 2-day training, is how do you have these branching conversations so that the information that you're gathering is really, really good, detailed information, and not just, the kid likes to play video games. There are so many video games. What exactly do they like to play? All right, we're going to watch this video, and then you're going to use the chat to give me information about what you think is important to grandma and what you think is important for grandma. So let me share Chrome, share Sam. Okay. Sorry, Menti, I didn't get to use you. Okay. All right, so this is a young man named Chris Punsalan, and he is a caretaker. He takes care of his grandmother, and he has TikToks and a Facebook account. I do want to let you know that his grandmother, he's been caring for her for, I think, 8 years. And so she knows that he takes these videos, that he shares these videos, because he's been doing it for so long. And she is okay with it, because I don't want to share something where you think, oh, did that person have the choice to be shown on the internet like this? She did. All right. So we're looking for those clues, important 2 and important 4.
In my solitude, had asked, She's looking for a napkin. Look at that.
Ala.
Look at that. So freaking cute. Here you go.
Nomano ko ganyan.
Magrosaryo ka.
Oo ah.
Glasses. Let's have one sip before I go. Tanks.
Nanungal daw yan.
Martes.
Tuesday. Martes.
Martes.
Tuesday.
Tuesday. In my solitude. Look how frick.
Okay. Were y'all able to hear that? I know that was super fast, but tell me, what are some things that you saw in that brief video? So let's put down some things that we think are important to Grandma. Things that bring her happiness, joy, contentment, fulfillment. Her napkin, water, rosary, prayer, religion, right? Good. What do we think are some things that are important for Grandma? Comfort. Warmth. Okay, so her blanket. When we say comfort, what do we mean by comfort exactly? Being in a comfortable position. Perfect. Being taken care of by someone who loves her and knows her connection. Reassuring what she heard was correct. Good. I see y'all digging deeper. That's awesome. Right. So that was a very brief video. Knowing what day it is. Yes. Christy, can you tell me why is that important?
Yeah, I'll unmute. I think there could be a couple reasons. One is just that connection with kind of the outside world, which she may not have as much of, and just passage of time, potentially being an older person. Also, there may be things that she likes to do on certain days. So maybe she likes to know it's Tuesday because Wednesday's when something happens. So I think there could be a lot of reasons, which is part of what you're talking about, getting more information to find out why that's important.
Right, exactly. So you have brought up a very good point, is that, you know, we make guesses. So we're guessing, but we would want to have a conversation with Grandma to figure out exactly, you know, are these guesses correct? And Grandma's either going to say yes or no. And if they say no, then that leads you to more information. So here are some possible answers by her family. People respecting her things. I think maybe I started the video. I started the video after it happened, but her grandson takes off her glasses and then he just kind of like places them a little bit roughly on the little table, and then she chastises him about it. So him respecting her stuff, and then he was like, you know, bowing his head down, showing her gratitude is important to her. That's being heard. So when she was telling him, don't throw my stuff, what happens if it breaks? You know, I would think that it was important for her to be heard. Her religion, praying with her rosary, knowing what's going to happen next, right? What's on the schedule next. Drinking her water, that's definitely important for her health and safety. Her wheelchairs, having pillows for support, knowing that she needs full assistance to transfer to the bed now. Before she could walk to the bed, but now she can no longer do that. She has to have socks, her feet have to be raised, she has to have that neck pillow. So knowing the day of the week is important for her, because, and this is from other videos, that I watch his videos a lot for work. And it's because she's Catholic. And so every day she prays something different based on what day it is. So that's why it's important for her to know what the day of the week is, so she knows specifically what she's going to pray that day on the rosary. Her glasses and using disposable adult wreaths. Right, so that was just a little bit of what we saw. And if I were, let's say, you know, somebody who's coming to provide part-time care for Chris's grandma, then, you know, I don't want to just focus on the important for her, but I need to also focus on the important too. And that's how I help to balance, support her in a balanced way, to know that if, you know, she tells me something, that I need to listen to her. To know that her religion is really important to her and that she prays every single day, and that it's important for me to tell her like what's going to happen next so she knows what's on her schedule for the day. Oh, thank you, Christy. Yeah. So, yeah, I just love that video. The grandma, she's so sweet. And it's a good one too when we're talking about the importance of culture, because for her, I wish I could, sit down and have conversations with her, because she speaks to him, in his language. I can't remember what that language is called, because it's not Tagalog. It's a different language from the Philippines. Okay, so important 2 and important 4, y'all did a great job on that, by the way. So important 2 and important 4 are connected, and they definitely influence each other. And it is really challenging to try to get someone to do something that's important for them, unless there's a hook, something that is important to you that's tied to it. All right, so think of the times that, maybe personally you were trying to be healthier, you were trying to exercise, you were trying to stop drinking coffee. And then, the next day somebody brings Starbucks to the office and you're like, dang it, I really like Starbucks. Okay, I'll start again tomorrow. Right? If there is a hook, something that is important to you that makes it worthwhile, it's going to be really hard to do that health and safety thing and stick with it. So when we're talking about, let's say youth, young kids, and they take medication, and as we're growing up, right, every morning mom's like, here's your medicine, take it. And we don't ever have the conversations of, why is this medicine important for you? What is it about your future that is important to you that makes taking this medicine something that you're willing to do, not just because mom is forcing you to do it, right? Because once that kid turns 18 and they're like, no, I don't want to take it anymore, right? There was never something in there that was important to them. Then they stop taking it, and that causes all kinds of, problems. So when my son is taking his medication, sometimes he doesn't want to take it. And so we have to have conversations about, your medicine helps you to be able to focus at school, and your medicine helps you to get better grades because you're able to listen longer. And it is important to you to be a dad in the future and to have a good job in the future so that you can care for your family. And if we don't take this medicine, then you have a harder time at school, your grades go down, and then your chances of having a good job to take care of your family are less. And that actually works for him, right? Because being a dad in the future is that important to him that he says, you're right, Mom, I'm going to do it. Right. For me, I lost 85 pounds over a year, and I had tried to lose weight before and I couldn't really stick to it. But what was the important too was that I had a reunion at the school that I went to in Switzerland, and I hadn't seen these people in 30 years. And that was my motivator. I was like, okay, I have a date. I know exactly when I want to look good. I don't want to go back. I know the last time these people saw me, I was 16 and tiny, and it was enough of a motivator, and I lost the weight. And then I came back after the reunion and I was like, oh, now I need a totally different motivator. Otherwise, I'm going to go back to eating carbs all day long. And it was me getting rid of all my clothes, not leaving myself with any backup clothes whatsoever. So then it was the money, the expense that I put into getting a new wardrobe. That's my motivator. I do not want to have to buy new clothes now. And so that balance, it's always changing, and it includes trade-offs, because what's important to Ty right now, what's important to me right now, might not be important to me next week. So that's why it's important to always have new information. So if you're trying to have a relationship with a student, and 1 week you're talking about Marvel, and then they decide, you know what, it's all about DC. and you don't know that, and you're still trying to talk about Marvel, and they've moved on to DC, right? That important too has changed now. And then there's always trade-offs between the two. So if I'm ill, my life is going to be a little bit more focused on important four, right? So definitely I will be at home, I'll be taking care of myself, I'm going to be sleeping, I'm going to be, you know, eating things that probably aren't as fun. You know, I'm not going to be eating pizza or anything. I'm probably going to be having chicken broth or something like that. I don't get to go out. So my life is going to be focused on important four for a short period of time. But then the importance is when I get back to being healthy, right, I get to go back to having that balance. And so sometimes people are always stuck on important four and they don't get the chance to go back to important two. So that dynamic is always changing. We're not always in a good balance, but it's good to make sure that we keep that in mind. All right, so this is a story about George, and George is a grandpa, and George had to go get occupational therapy for his hands. And George hated going to occupational therapy. He hated having to do all these exercises, and he was really, really grumpy about it. So the person that was occupational therapist, you know, he didn't know anything about person-centered thinking, so he didn't do this because he knew about it. He just was really cool and figured this out. So he had a conversation with George, try to find out a little bit more about George. And he found out that George has grandchildren and that George loves his grandchildren. And he really loves when his grandchildren come to visit him at the nursing home where he lived. And so his OT said, you know what? How about if I teach you some magic tricks? Right? What if I teach you some magic tricks that you can show to your grandkids when they come visit you? And George was willingly doing hand exercises that looked a little bit different so that he could learn how to do these magic tricks so that he had something he could do with his grandkids. Right? So that's how it works, right? Tying the important two and the important four. He wasn't willingly doing those exercises. He's very grumpy about it. But once the OT said, hey, oh, how about if we do this and then you can show your grandkids, he was like, oh, okay. And he did it. And he was willingly doing it. So this is just another example of we don't want people to live a life where we're focused on important four, right? When we do that, it limits experiences. When students, you know, when we're just focusing on schoolwork, right? And we're not thinking about what we need to do as a team to help the student find friends, to find their community, right? That's really important for. We're managing behaviors, right? Important for. So when we do that, we lose out on experiences and getting to think about having a good life because we're just focused on health and safety. But at the same time, we're not saying, oh, you know, it's only important too. It's only all choices, no responsibilities. Oh no, we're trying to be person-centered. So that means that if that student, you know, who is a diabetic wants to drink 10 cans of Coke every day, that's okay because that's their choice. It's important to them. No, that's not what we want, right? That's when we are happy and dead, is what we say. So this one is alive and miserable, and that one is happy and dead. But what we want is a good balance between the two. Right? We're looking at the health and safety. People are health and safe in their own terms, right? How they want to do it, not being forced to do it. And then they're also getting the important two in their lives. And so we make these trade-offs between the things that are important to us. And I always think of you, Megan, when I do this part of the training, you know, because in this example, some people may love living in a particular place and they're willing to make the trade-off to have a longer commute because they're working where they love, but they're also getting to live where they want to live, right? So that's the trade-off between the two. And then they can also be temporary trade-off or long-term trade-offs. So this next one I use with my kids all the time, right? Having my friends over the house is important to me, but having a clean room, instead of a clean house, so I can be valued by my friends, or helping mom so that the house looks clean because, it's important to me for my house to be clean if other people are there. So then house cleaning comes before your friends come over. So you're going to have to help mom get the house nice and clean before people can come over. Expressing my personal opinions, speaking my mind is important to me, but not cursing in front of my neighbors is important for me. So cursing is something that is important to my son. He loves curse words, has really enjoyed curse words since he was young. And that's something that we had to find a good balance between that. Because you know what? When he's an adult, hey, who's going to say you can't curse? You are a full grown adult. There are a lot of adults out there that curse all the time. They curse around their kids. It is okay in their family. Right. So we had to find the balance between the two. I don't like hearing curse words. Dad doesn't like hearing curse words. So you can curse all you want in your room. We're not going to curse at school because that causes problems. So, he knows I'm in my room, I can curse. So, and he does. All right. So when we implement person-centered practices, we are making a promise to be honest. We're letting people know when what they're telling us is going to take time, right? So we don't leave people hanging. We don't say, oh, I heard you. This is what we're going to do. And then peace out, you're gone. And then hear from you again. We say, oh, okay. You've told me this. That's something that I can't do like in a week. That's going to take a process, right? We have to get other people involved. So we're keeping people up to date. We also are honest when we don't know how to help them get what they want. So that's one that I say often to Ty, I don't know how to help you with the fact that you are at school 8 hours a day. Like that is something that you have to do. It is an important for you. But, what we can do is we can look at the things that you do have control over. But for example, the person that in the training, our stories are all real people. So the person who wants to drink a lot of soda and they're diabetic, that would be one where like, I can't figure out how to help you drink soda every day and manage your diabetes. And that goes along with the next one. When the person, what they're telling us is in conflict to staying healthy or safe, and we can't find a good balance between the important two and the important four, that's where we're going to be honest. No, I get that that's important to you, having that soda, but that is definitely not a good choice. So let's, see if there's somebody else that whose opinion you value, and maybe they could, help you think of a way to find a good balance. Maybe we try different things. All right, so just some examples. I'm going to go through these real quick. So one of the examples that we use is the rituals and routines. This is one of the skills. And so we talk about the different rituals and routines that we have. And rituals bring us comfort, and routines bring us routines bring us a sense of control and knowing when things are going to happen. And we all have different rituals and routines that are important to us. So this is one way that we can gather information from people, even if they don't use words to communicate. Sometimes people think, oh, you can only do person-centered thinking or person-centered planning if people can verbally communicate, but that's not true. We can observe people and find out, what does this person do in the morning? Right, we're watching the kind of toothpaste that they use. We're watching what they drink in the morning. My son, my other son, he, I don't get this at all because I am a brush my teeth right away in the morning, but he is I'm going to eat and then brush my teeth, which totally grosses me out. But he doesn't like drink. He loves orange juice, but he can't brush his teeth and then drink orange juice. So if I were supporting him and I used my own morning routine of brushing my teeth first and then eating, and he couldn't communicate with me. He would communicate with me through his behavior, right? So then if I bring him his orange juice and I've brushed his teeth and I bring him orange juice and he slams that orange juice across the wall, right now I'm thinking, oh, here we go. We're going to have this kind of day. And I'm not realizing that that's him telling me, no, that's going to taste horrible. I need to drink my orange juice first and then brush my teeth. Right? So we can observe people's rituals and routines to get their information. All right, I'm going to skip all of that. That was ties. This is the example of the communication chart. And it helps us to see, right, when this is happening, this is the environment, this is what just happened, the trigger. The second column is what we see, what we hear, what we feel. The third column is the meaning of that action, what emotions and feelings people are having, that person, what's going on inside. And the fourth column is what they want you to do, what support, right? This isn't about consequences or anything like that. Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. This is about how they want to be supported. So I'm going to show you real quick. Here's an example of my son's communication chart. So what is happening, it could be anywhere, anytime, and you see him rocking side to side like this. What that means is he's trying to calm himself, he's trying to focus. And what I want you to do is don't do anything. This is helpful. This is a good, helpful thing to him. He enjoys it. However, very similar, if he's in a loud room and he's struggling with an assignment, and he's rocking like this, and he's getting louder, that means he's starting to get anxious. And the way that you can support him as a teacher is to explain, why is the room loud? Or give him a reminder, do you want to go use your headphones? Or ask him, what don't you understand? If you see that he's struggling with an assignment, how can I help? Give him a choice to take a walk, right? So we see here, it's about support. None of this is about fixing. None of this is about stopping a behavior at all, right? Like this one, for example, if an adult yells and he says, nobody talks to me like that, don't touch me. That's the important thing. Explain why I had to raise your voice. Ask me in a calm tone, right? We're not going to be saying, you don't raise your voice at teachers. Right? That's going to make things worse. So that is one of my favorite. And actually, when teachers see this, because at the beginning of the year, we all sit down and have a staffing meeting, and they all get the person-centered description. And then some people get a one-page description. That is typically the paper that they like the most, because it really informs them on some of the ways that he communicates with his behavior and what it means. And it's the cheat sheet, really, to starting off on a good foot and developing relationships quicker, because they don't have to guess, what does that mean when he does that? So this is what a person-centered description looks like. So after we discover all this information, then we share it. So this is what the teachers get at the beginning of the year. It's a specific purpose to help my new teachers at Bryan High get to know me, learn how to best support me, and help me reach my goals, right? So there's always a very specific purpose to the description, because if this was to help me get a job, then the great things about me might be different, right? I might not be talking about him being protective, but I'm definitely going to say he's a problem solver. I'm definitely going to say, we're definitely going to add that he's responsible, right? Because that's a good thing to be when you're looking for an employee, is a responsible employee. How he wants to be supported is going to be different on the job than at school. The things that are important to him on the job will be different. His communication chart, his relationship map, to know who he's close with, to know what kind of people he gets along well with. You can have all kinds of conversations about people who are close to him, and that gives you an idea of the last page matching, right? Why do you like Mrs. Wan? Mrs. Wan is very patient, right? So we knew that having a patient teacher is important. Mr. Jackson is a really good listener, right? So being a good listener. So this stuff here, supports and the skills required, that's all stuff that people can be trained on, but you can't train somebody to be patient. You're either patient or you're not. You know, you're either a person that's not easily offended or you are easily offended. And then getting to know, you know, that he likes to talk about family. Well, if you pair him with somebody who is really closed off, which has happened before, it's challenging because he loves to talk to people and find out more about them. And then when we're doing, and I'm at the end, and then the last thing is a one-page description. So those you create for a very specific purpose. So for example, you can create a one-page description for going to the doctor. The information is going to be different. And it's a positive way to introduce someone, and it has at least 3 things: what people like and admire, what's most important to them, and how to provide the best support. And these are just some examples. So you see, this is from birth to death, basically. So a little baby Maxwell, Liam, this one is created specifically for when Liam goes to meet new doctors because Liam is blind and deaf. And it's important for doctors to know that he has to touch things. He's not being an annoying little kid. He is blind and he is deaf, and he has to touch things to know his surroundings. He has to touch you. This is Ty's most up-to-date person-centered description, right, for school. This is Sarah's. Sarah has a mental health condition, and this is her one-page description so that when she was in the hospital, they would know how to best support her. This is Ruth, right? One-page description for Grandma Ruth. One of the things that's important to Grandma Ruth is to have her rum and tea before she goes to bed. Important to her. Right? We're not going to say, no, you can't have rum and tea before you go to bed. Important to her. She likes to chit chat with people. And then all of this work, you don't just do it one time. It keeps this learning wheel. So we do the work, we use our skills, we create the person-centered description. We go back and we assess what needs to stay the same, what needs to change. We change our action plans, we implement new things, we implement the things that we've learned about, and then we go back again and we update the person-centered description. So for my son, we've updated it about 3 times a year with feedback from Ty, from his teachers, from lots of people. So that is it for today. If you're interested in learning more about person-centered thinking, I actually have a full training next week. Megan, will you send them the flyer? Okay. Thank you so much for being here today. I apologize for going over 2 minutes. Is there anything else, Megan, that you need to say?
I just wanted to thank you, Aimee, for your time today. And I know that it is precious, and we're so proud of the work that you do, not only here at our center and in our university, but across the state. And so I just thank you so much for your time today, Aimee. And we have a survey at the end. It's in our chat box, and I will also email it to you guys, as well as the flyer that Aimee was mentioning. Aimee will also be presenting at the Success Conference right here in the Brazos Valley on April 1st. And she'll be talking about person-centered thinking and healthcare transition. So if you guys would like more information, I will be sharing that in the email. So thank you for your time today, and I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you, Aimee.